Hi everybody, Mr. Brown here. Welcome to a video lesson of what we would normally do in class. Today we're going to talk about movement as one of the principles of design. I've said it a bunch of times in class, but the elements of art are the basic building blocks of art, and then the way you organize those things are called the principles of design. This one's called movement. So the suggestion of motion in our work of art or design by the relationship of basic elements in a design or composition. Nobody knows what that means. That's like too many words and too many things. But I think this definition here is actually pretty good. Visual movement is the principle of art used to create the impression of action in a work of art. It's the way that we organize stuff so that it looks like things are moving, or it gives you the impression that things are moving. In graphic design, it's also how your eyes move around the artwork. And you do that by putting lines and shapes and colors in certain ways. Let's watch this super short little 20-second video.
Visual movement. Visual movement is the way your eyes travel through an artwork. Artists create visual movement through implied lines, color combinations, emphasis, and repetition.
Boom. So in that painting, it's like not a painting, it's a print by Hokusai. There's a lot of movement shown. So there's these waves and the boats in the waves and a lot of repetition. As a side note, I do want to say this. There is such thing as kinetic movement in art, but in anything. But in kinetic movement, it means that the things actually move. So I want to show you this short video about kinetic movement. We're not going to do that for this project necessarily, but you could, I guess. So this is kinetic movement. Kinetic movement means it actually is moving. Pretty cool. So it's just a bunch of little fan-like things on motors that open and close based on a program. All right. So we're going to talk about movement in art a couple times really quick. Here we go. These are just a bunch of triangles. So that's a shape. So that's a element of art. And then as they get smaller, they get further away from us visually. We think of it that way. So we have movement here. This is movement being created. This is a painting by Van Gogh. It's called Starry Night. It's like one of the most famous paintings ever. But he uses movement quite a bit in this. You can see, you can feel the way that these clouds and the sky is moving. And he does that with his brush strokes and color. We're going to compare these two really quick. This is a painting called Nude Descending a Staircase. And this is also a photograph showing multiple stages of a golf swing. So both of these are showing one person in multiple stages of an action all stacked up on top of each other. This was a part of the Cubist movement. And then this is a photograph by Doc Edgerton. All right, well, what do we have to do, Brown? Well, you're going to create your own comic cover that shows the principle of design movement. So the first thing you got to do is draw 3 sketches. Normally in class, you'd show them to me or I'd come around. I'd give you some advice. Here's the 3 I did. All of mine are based on the Titanic. So it's the Titanic coming up out of the water like it sank and then it rises back up to like exact revenge on the people that made the iceberg or something. This one, the Titanic strikes back, so it's actually shooting the iceberg. And then in this one, Jack has like superpowers or something. I'm not sure. So you sketch them out. Decide on one. You're going to draw that on a 6.5 by 10. If you don't have paper to do that, draw it on something. Ideally, 6.5 by 10 is like a standard comic book size. And the reason I chose comic books for this is they use movement quite a bit in their covers, and especially like just when they're showing stuff, because there's always action happening in comic books. That's sort of the point. Maybe. I don't know. So you're going to sketch them, choose one, draw it on a 6.5 by 10 if you can. If you can't do that, draw it on something. Draw it on your forehead. And then finish it with color if you have access to that. Here's a couple examples. I'm actually only going to talk about this Fantastic Four one, but you can see like Johnny Storm coming in creates movement here that goes into this little guy's mouth, and then your eyes sort of follow this circular shape around. The Rocketeer obviously has like some pretty strong movement here with these lines, but also the lines of this octopus or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And then here's my example of the Titanic fights back. So instead of the Titanic sinking because they hit an iceberg, it has a big giant cannon and it's shooting. So I've got some movement here with the shots. Ideally, this water would have had more movement in it, and I kind of messed it up. But that's the only thing I would probably fix on this, and maybe working the background a little bit more. But there's my Titanic cover. So your job is to create a comic book cover that shows movement. If you can color it, awesome. If you can't, don't color it, just use shading. I'll put a little side note here. You feel like you can't draw people? Look at mine. There are no people in it. You'd use vehicles, cars, planes, trains, animals, cartoon characters, fantasy creatures, whatever. It's your comic. Like, I'm not telling you have to draw, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people. You don't have to do that. Rocketeer kind of has a person, sort of, but he's just a silhouette. So I want you to create your own comic book cover that shows movement. Okay. Bye. Say bye, Dior.
Bye, I guess.
Bye.
Bye.